All right, welcome everyone to Language Links. We are doing part 2 of book reading and communication. It's a true partnership. And I'll do a little review from part 1 from last month, and then we're going to keep going with some additional strategies and ideas so that you can use books in your home, no matter how old your child or who you serve. You can use books to help build language, and along with language, those social engagement skills, because they all come hand in hand. All of the skills that we're talking about come together as a package. I'm going to, do the presentation, and then if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat box, but I'm going to open the chat box at the end because I tend to get very distracted, and then I'm not very good at doing both chat and the presentation. So if you don't want to forget your question, just put it in the chat box. We'll open it up at the end. I want to bring this event to your attention. It does take place in Miami-Dade. If you live close to the North Dade Regional Library, one of my colleagues down in our office sent this to me. It takes place at the library, looks really cool, involves books, and I just want to give this event a plug. So if you're interested, hold up your camera, take a picture of it. This day also up in Broward, look out for our email blast that will come out with, we are also having an event, not having to do with books, but we're doing like a day in the park on this same day. So keep your eyes open for that event. So we have many locations. This is where we're located. I personally am located at the NSU satellite office in Davie. We're located on Griffin in the speech language pathology building. And if you're not familiar with CARD, these are the many things that we do. We do lots and lots of things which are free of charge to you. And in a nutshell, we provide consultation services. So we don't provide direct services to your child. We don't provide speech therapy or OT or ABA therapy. We're not tutors, but we help you find those resources. We help you understand when you need those resources. And we do a lot of group training like this, as well as one-on-one training to teach you the strategies that you need, and the professionals who are working with your children, the strategies that they need. So that's in a nutshell what we do. I hope you get our email blast. If you're not registered with CARD, you can go to this website or hold up your camera to this QR code. And so when you hold up your camera, you can just touch the QR code on your screen, and it will take you to the website where you can register, or you can click on Contact Us and you can register there. Oh, I clicked on it, sorry. Hold on one second. I lost my screen there. Okay. So I just mentioned our newsletter. Keep your eyes open for our newsletter. You can sign up for our newsletter here at the website that was just on the other slide, card.miami.edu. And if you click on community outreach, you can sign up for the newsletter, which will be filled with lots of different events. And April is Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. And so you're going to see lots and lots of events coming through. April's a really busy month. So a couple of years ago, a parent sent this photo to me. I asked her for permission to share it because this is what you want. You want your child to be in the shower and writing, scribbling, experimenting. And it doesn't even have to be letters. I don't know if this little girl was trying to spell a specific word, but it doesn't matter. She was experimenting with letters. And so this is your ultimate goal, okay? Last month, we talked about the model of literacy learning. This is how literacy skills develop. We used to think that first kids, babies, months old, from newborn, they become listeners. And then, when they master the skill of listening, then they become speakers. And when they can speak, then they're ready to read. And once they know their letters and letter sounds and their reading, then they'll be able to write letters with their corresponding sounds and ideas. Now we know that that model was incorrect, that this is how we learn literacy and language skills. They're all connected. We need our children at every single age, even when they're 2, to be experiencing activities and experiences related to all of these things simultaneously in their life. So in order for them to become speakers, they need to be read to, they need to be scribbling, they need to be listening to language, to books, to music. In order to become readers, they need to be scribbling and writing, even if it makes no sense. They need to be communicating in some way. They need to be listening. In order for them to become writers, they need to be reading. They need to learn the function of text. They need to be speaking. And it doesn't mean verbally. They could also be using AAC if you have a child who's an AAC user. They need to be doing all of these things simultaneously. So no one should ever tell you, no, your child's not ready to write. And I don't mean handwriting. I mean express themselves through writing. That could include typing one day. It could include dictating one day. But at the very early ages, it's even scribbling, making a line on a piece of paper. That's writing for a 3-year-old. So no one should ever tell you, oh no, he doesn't know his letters, so he's not ready to write. That is not okay. So this is the model that you need to remember. Last week, we also learned that there are no prerequisites to participating in literacy learning experiences. Not only does your child not need to know their letters and sounds in order to read books, look at books, write, scribble, paint, but they also don't need to behave appropriately. They don't need to sit. They don't need to look at you. They need to be exposed and have the opportunity to participate in literacy learning activities, but they don't need to do anything to earn the right to participate in those activities. We also last time looked at some statistics, and the numbers that I shared, if you remember, told us that the more minutes we read with our children, the better. And it adds up over years. The more, the better. The more language they'll be exposed to, the more general knowledge they're exposed to, the more social engagement. There's a whole slew of things that these reading opportunities can do to benefit our children and our families. We also talked about motivation and how that's really important when we think about getting our kids to participate in reading activities. And we'll talk more about that today. We also talked about test less and teach more. So testing is when we say, what color is the monster's face? How many hats is he wearing? What does the duck say? That's testing. But teaching would be, oh, that monster's face is green. It's scary. That's teaching. That's dialoguing. That's really showing the meaningful impact that language has. We talked about ways to make book reading interactive. We'll talk a little bit more about that today. And we also talked about using visual schedules. And I showed you many samples of using visual schedules or of visual schedules that you can use from, the time they get home from school or from the morning until the nighttime. But, it could be a period of time that the schedule can cover, or you can use a visual schedule to show what's going to happen during that book reading time. So if you have any questions about any of these items, email me and I can explain further. This was a little review of what we did last time in part 1. Today, we're going to talk more about motivating your child. We're going to describe what kinds of books you can read together. We're going to talk about making your own books, because that's a really, really cool way to motivate your kids. And also we're going to talk about the strategy called follow the car. So let's talk a little bit about building motivation. We talked last month about using your child's area of interest when choosing books and you want to motivate them. And so if you have a child who doesn't really love to read books with you, find books related to what they are interested in. If they love airplanes, find books about airplanes. Pull them in that way. If they're interested in something that you can't find a book about, you may have to make your own books, and I'll show you that soon. We also talked about using those visual schedules, and that can motivate them because that can help them understand what they get to do when they're done with book time, which is not their favorite. And it can also explain to them what's to come. It can help them predict. First, it's mommy's turn to choose a book, and then it's my turn to choose my favorite book that they read repetitively. Or it could be first mommy reads a page and then I read a page, and then mommy reads a page and then I read a page. For those kids who can be a little inflexible and they want to read the book themselves only, that could help deal with that and motivate them to participate with you. And we talked about using props. So using puppets, using, things that make certain noises in the book. Anything that motivates your child and makes it fun and silly, humorous, will pull them in and motivate them to participate in something that they are not loving. In terms of motivation, we're going to talk about making your own books and developing a plan to help your child participate. And we're going to talk about these two things right now so that we can motivate your child. So these are 3 strategies you can use to motivate your child. One is you follow your child's lead. So if your child will not come and sit with you for a book, you're going to follow their lead by starting really, really small. And so you're going to call them to come read with you. You're going to show them the cover, say the title quickly, go to the middle of the book, label a picture. You're not even going to read the text. Label the picture, go to the last page and say the end, close the book, and let them go. And then 2 minutes later, you're going to call them back. You read the title, you label the picture in the middle of the book, you go to the end, you close the book, you let them go. And you do that repetitively over and over again. Do that about 10 times. And then the next day, do it again 10 times. And then the next day, label 2 pictures in the middle of the book. When they're beginning to sit and cooperate, you can add in pages and keep giving them a break until they don't even realize they're staying as you label most of the pages in the book and then all of the pages in the book. And then eventually you can build in reading the text. So you're making it very easy for them to participate and be successful all the way to completion. Another thing you can use is a token board, a token system, and a first then board. And I'll show you examples of different boards in a minute. But a token system, a token is like one of these little pictures on Velcro, and you have a board. In this case, it's a little piece of cardboard. And in this case, there are 3 pieces of Velcro on the board. And so my child comes to sit with me. Yay, you came to sit with me. Give them a token. You label one thing in the middle of the book. You're reading the book. Give them the token. The end. You give them the token. They get to go and play. They earned their 3 tokens. Eventually, you don't have to deliver the tokens as quickly. And you can also make a token board that has 10 tokens. So you can adjust how quickly and how slowly you give the tokens. That's up to you. A first then board shows first we're going to do this, and then we can do this. So it might be first we're going to read mommy's book, and then we're going to read your book. Or it could be first we're going to read our book, and then we're going to go ride our bike. So it shows them exactly what to expect. Let me show you some more examples. So these are token boards. This is one with 10. This is one with 5. And you'll notice that for these token boards, we're using tokens that are of interest to the child. So this child loves Batman. We made Batman tokens. These are first then boards. And again, it wouldn't be work here, but it would be first we're going to read our book, and then we get to use the iPad. Or first we're going to read daddy's book, and then we're going to read your book. Or first we're going to read your book, and then it's mommy's turn. All right. And it's the visual telling your child what to expect, not you. And it's much easier for them to process what you're saying to them if they can see that visually. When you're choosing books for beginning readers or very young children, these are the things we're looking for. And if you think about early childhood books, they have these qualities. There's a reason that authors who write books for young children use these qualities in their writing. So rhythm is something important for language development. And if you think about a book like Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, do 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 do, like all of the text has rhythm, and there's lots of rhyme, right? That's very important for language development, for hearing sounds. We look for books with lots of repetition and predictability. An example of that would be Brown Bear, what do you see? I see a red bird looking at me. I'm sure all of us know that book off by heart. And that's important for children who are learning to read, because when they begin to connect the dots, they know the words off by heart, and then they're making connections between that text and what they know the word should say, they begin to develop letter sound recognition. Alliteration is another great characteristic. Not all books have this, but alliteration is when every word starts with the same letter. The lively lollipop lived in the land. So it brings attention to the sounds. And that's very important for language development and letter sound recognition. We often see our good books, they only have a few words per page. That's great for our beginning readers because they get to become familiar with the shapes of those words. It's predictable, the letter sounds. So a few words per page is a great start for our beginning readers and our young children. Short is great for our young children and easy to manipulate. So children have to be able to turn the page of a book? Or else how can you participate in book reading? If they cannot turn the page, if their fine motor skills are not developed enough, or it's difficult for them, there's something that we can put on pages called page fluffers. And if you Google that term, page fluffers, you'll see lots of ideas of what you can do to the pages of a book in order to make it more easily turnable, manipulated. When you choose books, you want the books to be age appropriate. And so every now and then a parent will tell me, but my child's favorite book is Barney, and he's already 17. Absolutely, your 17-year-old child should keep their favorite books and look at them because it makes them feel good. It makes them feel happy. We all want to engage in those things, and I would never want to take that away. But when we're expanding their world of language and literacy, it's important to talk about and be within age respectful material. And so keep the material that isn't age appropriate for specific times when it's, calm time and they can choose whatever they want to do, but introduce them to age appropriate, age respectful material. You want to choose books that are of interest to your child. We spoke about that. Sometimes we choose books that are our own favorites from our childhood. And those are books that you should introduce to your family. You may choose to introduce them to books that they might see at school so that they're familiar with the books in their classroom library. Your child also might be of age where they're being assigned to read books at home, might be for a book report or a project. So you may want to have those books at home so that they become familiar with that material with you. And then you also may want to choose books that represent who you are and who your family is, the language that you speak. Read books in Spanish. Or this morning, I spoke to a mom who speaks Turkish in their home, and I encouraged her to bring Turkish books for children into her home. If your child is in a wheelchair, find books with children in wheelchairs. It's very important for our children to see themselves in the books that we read to them. You want to choose books that have interesting and clear pictures that match the text, because when our children are developing language and literacy skills, we want the illustrations to support the text so we can work on comprehension skills and expand their vocabulary. When I say to look for books that are interactive, I mean books that might have flaps that allow for some social engagement. Look for books that allow you to act out the roles or use puppets. By interactive, I mean books that allow you to interact with your child. Look for books with beginnings, with simple beginnings, middles, and ends. Let me rephrase that. Look for books that have a beginning, middle, and end so that you can talk about sequencing, so that after the book, you can say, what happened first? And then this happened. And then at the end or last, that's an important skill for our kids. You can also choose photo albums. Photo albums would be considered a wordless book. And that is a great book to read with your child because you can narrate it. You can point to different people who are meaningful to your child. Our our children love to see pictures of themselves and the people they love. So I encourage you to make a photo album, a book that you read with your child. And you can create a book just for your child. And we're going to go into that in a minute. Choosing the right book is so important because when you choose the right books, you're meeting the needs of their developmental age, you're meeting their language needs, their learning needs, their behavioral needs, because you're motivating them. So I encourage you to be thoughtful about the books that you're reading with your children. So let's talk about homemade books for a minute. So I'm going to show you a whole bunch of books that I made for my children. And there's so many different ways of doing this. I use PowerPoint when I create books, when I did for my kids. Before I used PowerPoint, I would bring my rolls of film to like CVS or Walgreens, and I would have them developed and I would glue them. I'm going to show you one that I glued and that I hand wrote. It wasn't fancy like in PowerPoint. My point is there are different ways to do this. And not only do our kids love these books, but they also become memories for you. So this little guy on the right is now 20, and I have this memory. How nice is that? So these are just a few pages from this book, and our real book that's printed is like all tattered and torn because my kids read this book with me so many times. And you can see on each page, the predictable text that I wrote is "we saw." So with every character on the page, I wrote, "we saw Cinderella, we saw Hook, we saw." So after reading it 10,000 times, my non-reading children knew that they could just say, "we saw," and they looked at the picture and could see what they should say. And then I said, "You just read this book." Now, did they really read it at the age of 3? No, but they could read it and be fully participating. And that's how kids begin the process of developing reading skills. So there were many pages before this last page, but every page was, "we saw so-and-so, we saw so-and-so." And it was a great way to connect, reading, the photos, memories of the experience. We could talk about what we were seeing in the pictures. This is another one that we made, and this is the one, and you can see it's like all torn because we read it so many times. I just stuck on with a stick of glue these photos, and I just wrote it quickly. And this was another one when my kids were a little older. And I'm using a lot of text. My kids were older, they were ready for more language, but you have to think about what kind of text would be good for your child. Okay.
And there you're using this is me and this is me and.
Exactly. This is me doing this. This is me doing this. This is me, but you could choose anything you want. It could be as simple as, "I see a trampoline. I see an apple. I see an airplane." It could be anything. Or it could be, "on my trip, I loved," and that could be the phrase for every page. Or if your child has a lot of language, you don't have to follow that predictability. So when you think of making your own book, think about first what story you're going to tell. what are you going to start with? And why is this story meaningful for your child? Use PowerPoint to create the book. And if you don't know how to use PowerPoint to do this and you want me to show you, let me know. Use photos and drawings that are interesting to your child. So you can put photos on every single page, you know, like I did of my children. But like I once made a book for a family, their son was interested in different kinds of balls. So we took a whole bunch of different kinds of balls, like a football, a basketball, a tennis ball, a golf ball, and we put it in various locations in our building at work. And I took a photo of each ball in its location. And then I put that into the book, and the book was, you know, each phrase on the page was, it was, the basketball is on the table. The golf ball is under the water fountain. The tennis ball is in the bag. You know, so that was the gist of the book. But I also knew that this little boy would love to see himself. So I took a picture of his face and I put it on every single page in the corner, a little picture of him. And between his favorite topic, the balls, and seeing his face, he loved the book. So, you know, think about how you can interest your child and how you can pull them into reading this book. Think about using simple and predictable text. And make sure that whatever you write is grammatically correct. Make sure that in whatever language, doesn't even matter, you can write this book in any language you want, but make sure that it's correct because you're modeling for your child. Make sure it has all its periods, its capital letters, that everything is, you know, you're using the right conjugation for verbs, everything, okay? These are some apps or software that you can use to make books and purchase them. But with PowerPoint, you know, most of our computers have PowerPoint already. You know, with PowerPoint, you can print it and you can also show it on the computer. You can look at it on your iPhone or iPad, and you can also put it onto the television if you have Apple TV. So I love PowerPoint because you can use it in so many ways, but you can also purchase Chatbooks as an app, and like you can make books pretty inexpensively. They have different sizes. I've made books that are like 6 inches by 6 inches, but they have bigger ones. And it's very easy. Like I make the books on my phone, very quick and easy. Pictello is another app that you can make your own books. And Shutterfly, there are other picture websites just like Shutterfly, but you know, it's like making a photo book and you can add your own captions and text. Shutterfly has lots of coupons every now and then, so that can help with the cost, but just some ideas. In terms of finding books to read with your child, this is a really great resource called Tar Heel Reader. So you go to tarheelreader.org and you can put in whatever topic you want and you'll have a whole bunch of options. Please read the stories before you show your child to make sure that it's appropriate, to make sure it's good. These are PowerPoint books that are uploaded by people around the world. I think you can also choose the language you want. And you can see there's also, see on the top left, it says rated. So you can also choose the rating because some of the books are for older individuals, like adults who are beginning reading. So they might have topics that are not appropriate for your child. So you want to always vet the stories before. But it's free. You can print these stories, you can show them digitally. They're really a great resource. And then this is a strategy that you can use when you're reading a book with your child. And you can take a screenshot of this, and you can even jot it down so that you have it close by when you're reading with your child. It can serve as a framework of how to dialogue, how to teach and not test when you're reading with your child. And on every page or every second page, you can stop and do this. So you read the page, you make a comment about something you see or something you read, and you wait. That wait time is very important because it helps to give your child time to process what you just said and to make connections. Then A is you ask for participation. And I'll show you what that means in a minute. But you do something or say something, and then you wait. You're asking for them to participate by commenting or asking a question, but not a testing question. And I'll show you an example. And then the R is they participate, and then you respond by adding a little bit more, and then you wait. So C is for comment, A is for ask for participation, and R is for respond. I'll show you some examples. So I don't know if you're familiar with this book. It's one of my favorites, Go Away, Big Green Monster. It's really fun and silly. And with every page that turns, a different part of the face of the monster comes, on the page. And then it's like the whole monster face. And so on this page, the mom reads and she says, and a big, scary green face, but, and she stops and she comments and she says, I'm scared. And she's a little emphatic so that her child looks at her like, Mom, are you crazy? What are you doing? But that's connection making. That's engagement. So mom says, I'm scared. And she waits. And by her waiting, she's hoping that her child is going to participate and say something. So in this case, her child says, no. And then the mom says a little more in response. She repeats what her child said. No, monster, go away. And she added to what her child said. And then she keeps going. Now, if the mom said, I'm scared, and the child does not participate, the mom could say something like, are you scared? Do you remember when you were scared on Halloween? And then let's say the child says, Halloween. And then the mom can continue by adding something in response by saying, that's right. We did see a monster on Halloween and we were both scared. And then she keeps going. So you see the difference between dialoguing, teaching, versus testing. Testing would be, what color is his face? How many eyes does he have? Let's count the teeth. Where are your teeth? We all do it. Here's another example. No, David, if you're not familiar with Little David, these are great books, a lot of fun, very silly. Kids love it. David is the kid who is always in trouble. He doesn't mean to be in trouble, but he's always in trouble. And so in this book, you can see what he's done. So mom reads the text. No, David, no. And then she comments, that's C. She says, oh no. Again, very emphatic to motivate your child. And she waits. She's hoping her child's going to participate. And her child says, mess. And then she responds, the R is respond, and add to what her child just said. Mess, you're right. He did make a big mess. Oh no. Now let's say she said for her initial comment, the C was, oh no. And she waits, and that's her ask for participation. But her child doesn't do anything or say anything. So she might say something like, do you remember when Fluffy, the dog, made a big mess on our bed? That was a mess. And then she waits. And then hopefully her child will say something. If her child doesn't, she'll respond by, that was a big mess. We had to clean it up. And then she keeps going. But maybe her child will respond and say, Fluffy made a mess. And then mom can say in response, Fluffy did make a mess. He pulled the pillow apart, adding to what the child just said. And then she keeps going. Now, you may not be able to do that on every page, depending on your child. Your child, you may not even be able to do it just yet if you don't have full buy-in yet from your child and they can't sit for this whole activity. But once your child is sitting with you, you can start to embed this into book reading. So before we stop and we answer some questions, let's recap. Think about how you can motivate your child to participate. Look for books that are fun and interesting and that have those qualities that we talked about today. Make your own books. It's so much fun and your kids will love it. A mom a few weeks ago showed me a scrapbook that she started to make, where she just she went to the art store or the, school supply section of Walmart, and she got a scrapbook, and she just started gluing photos in and writing a sentence under the photo. And that became the book that she was using with her child, who then loved reading this book with her. Follow the CAR strategy. And then finally, we talked about all the plans that we could make to read books with our kids, but sometimes it doesn't always go the way we plan, and that's okay. Tell yourself it's okay. Our thinking has to be flexible, and it might work one day and not the next day, or you might do it for a week and it's not going so well and you keep trying, or you call me and say, I'm trying to do this and it's not working. How can we tweak it? So, just be flexible in your thinking, and no, don't be sad if it doesn't work out exactly the way you plan. It's okay. Before I go, this is a great website, by the way, practicalaac.org. If you have a child who uses AAC, please feel free to take a screenshot of this. But if you notice in the middle, see how practical is spelled? Practicalaac.org. That's how you spell it. Great resources for literacy development and AAC users, and just AAC in general. And then before we go on, if you would be so kind, we'll take 1 minute to fill out our evaluation. If you could just hold up your phone to this QR code. And what I'll do is I'll put the evaluation link in the chat box, just in case you're having trouble getting the QR code. So let me put it into the chat box right now. And I'll give you a few
Sorry,
seconds.
it doesn't
to
give
fill
you
that in.
the time. It says 9 a.m. virtual. I'm assuming the time is wrong on the list.
There's not an in-person option.
There is an in-person option at 9 a.m., but this is a virtual one, right?
Hold on, let me see what
It just
it's.
has a different time. It's all.
See?
I want to make sure that I do the right
Yeah,
one.
yeah, just do the 9 a.m. one, the one that says in person. It should have said noon, but it's that's fine.
The one that says in person or virtual?
Oh, I'm sorry, 9 a.m. virtual. Do the
Virtual, okay.
9 a.m. virtual. Yeah,
Okay.
it should have said noon.
No
Because
problem.
I did this same one in person this morning and they didn't realize. I'll give you 1 minute to do that.